Tucked away on the eastern shore of the Baltic Sea, there's a nation that was forged in deep forests and ancient amber. A nation tested by empires and, really defined by a spirit that just refuses to be silenced. This is the story of Latvia, a small country with one of history's most immense stories of survival. I mean, really, how do you stand up to a superpower, one that wants to literally erase your name from the map, replace your language, and just dissolve your identity into its own? You do it with something far more powerful than any weapon. You do it with a song. And not just one song, thousands of them, sung in defiant harmony by millions of people. They turned concert halls and city squares into the front lines of a revolution. Yeah, they called it the Singing Revolution. It's this absolutely extraordinary piece of modern history. In the late 1980s, as the Soviet Union was starting to crack, Latvia and its Baltic neighbors, they chose a path of resistance that was uniquely their own. They didn't mobilize armies, they mobilized choirs. So it all started to build in 1987 with these huge demonstrations. But it was August 1989 when the world saw one of the most powerful images of peaceful protest ever. It was called the Baltic Way. Just try to picture this: 2 million people holding hands, forming an unbroken human chain that stretched for more than 675 kilometers, right across Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. It was this silent, powerful human wall that declared they were united in their demand for freedom. And that wave of defiance, it was unstoppable. By 1990, their old flag was flying again, and just a year later, their independence was finally fully restored. So you have to ask yourself, where does that kind of resilience even come from? Well, to understand the spirit that fueled this singing revolution, you've got to look way deeper than politics. You have to look to the land itself. You see, Latvia's identity is just so deeply rooted in a landscape of forests and bogs that has sheltered and shaped its people for millennia. An incredible 56%. More than half of the entire country is covered in forest. And this isn't some modern green initiative. This is an ancient reality. This huge mosaic of pine and birch, of winding rivers, and these almost mystical bogs. It's more than just geography. It's the very heart of Latvian folklore, their culture, and their national character. And because this environment is so pristine, it's become a sanctuary for wildlife that has sadly vanished from a lot of the rest of Europe. Here, these ancient forests are still home to elusive wolves and lynx, while the skies are crossed by the rare black stork and the lesser spotted eagle. It's like a living reminder of a wilder, older continent. This connection between the land and its people is ancient. For thousands of years, the region's most precious treasure, it wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, it was fossilized tree resin, amber. They called it the gold of the north, and it was traded along routes that stretched all the way to the great empires of Rome and Byzantium, connecting this forested land to the very centers of civilization. All of this long history of connection and, yes, conflict has shaped not just the land, but the people. The story of modern Latvia is also a story of a really complex demographic reality, and it's a direct legacy of its incredibly turbulent 20th century history. If you look at the breakdown today, ethnic Latvians make up about 2/3 of the population, but right alongside them is a significant Russian minority at nearly a quarter of the population. Now, this demographic mix isn't the result of ancient history. It's the result of a deliberate policy of migration during the 5 decades of Soviet occupation. And that history led to a unique and, honestly, often misunderstood legal status: the non-citizen. See, when Latvia restored its independence in 1991, its legal argument was that it wasn't creating a new country, but legally restoring the one that was illegally occupied back in 1940. So based on this idea, citizenship was automatically given to those who were citizens before the occupation and to their descendants. But that meant that hundreds of thousands of people, mostly Russians, who had moved to Latvia during the Soviet era, well, they weren't automatically granted citizenship, which created this distinct legal category. To really get why that decision was made, we have to look at the brutal reality of the 20th century for Latvia. It was a period of almost constant occupation, a relentless storm that really threatened to extinguish the nation entirely. Just think about this timeline for a second. They declare independence in 1918, a brief, hopeful moment of freedom. But then, in 1939, a secret pact between Hitler and Stalin seals their fate. In 1940, the Soviets invade. In 1941, the Nazis invade. And then in 1944, the Soviets return for another 45 years. It was just this devastating back-and-forth succession of totalitarian regimes. So this set the stage for a decades-long struggle. On one side, you had Moscow imposing its will through policies of Russification, pushing the Russian language and culture while suppressing local identity. But on the other side, the Latvian people waged this quiet, brilliant war of cultural resistance. They preserved their language at home, secretly held on to their national symbols, and poured their soul into folklore and song. It all culminated in the massive Defiant Song and Dance Festival, a tradition that basically became a fortress of their identity. After finally breaking free in 1991, Latvia began this remarkable transformation. Like a phoenix, it really did rise from the ashes of the 20th century, completely determined to rebuild and rejoin the world as a sovereign European nation. But that path was anything but easy. The 2008 global financial crisis, it hit Latvia like a hurricane, harder than almost any other country on Earth. In a single year, its economy shrank by a staggering 18%. And yet, through really painful austerity measures and just incredible national resolve, Latvia staged one of the most impressive economic comebacks in modern European history, returning to strong growth just a couple of years later. And at the same time as this economic roller coaster, its geopolitical journey was crystal clear. The goals were security and integration. Russian troops were out by 94. Then came the pivotal year, 2004, when Latvia joined both NATO and the European Union. And in 2014, adopting the euro pretty much cemented its place at the very heart of Europe. The result of this entire journey is a complete transformation. The nation that was once wiped off the map, whose people were deported and whose culture was suppressed, has reemerged as a stable, prosperous, and developed European country. It's an incredible turnaround. All of this leaves us with a final, really powerful question. What is the true measure of a nation's strength? Is it the size of its army, the scale of its economy, or is it found in the unbreakable spirit of its people, in their capacity to endure, to remember who they are, and to find their voice, even if it means singing their nation back into existence?